Every applicant to American colleges has some freedom when they choose their high school classes and extracurriculars, and when they decide what to cover in their college essays. But for a long time, one application component was standardized and universally unavoidable. You've probably guessed it. Just as no one can escape death and taxes, no high schooler could escape standardized testing. No matter where they were from, teenagers everywhere had to spend hours taking these strenuous exams in order to even apply to colleges and universities in the US. At least until last year. In the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic and a simultaneous national reckoning with inequities in higher education, the rules changed. During the past year, most colleges and universities became test optional, and some even went test blind. Notably, both of California's public college systems, the University of California and California State University, have officially gone test blind. And this includes top schools like UCLA and UC Berkeley. If you're applying to the UCs, you may be wondering what this test blind policy means for you. Do you still need to take the SAT or the ACT? Will the UCs look at your scores if you send them? How does someone even get into a top school without a standardized test score? In this video, we will answer all of these questions and more. Hi, I'm Elias, and welcome back to College Vine. Today we'll be talking about the UC decision to go test blind and what it means for you. First of all, let's clear up the difference between test optional and test blind. At test optional schools, students can submit SAT or ACT test scores if they want, but it's not required. However, this doesn't really mean you'll have an equal chance of admission if you choose to opt out of testing. According to our research, students who submit SAT or ACT scores to test optional schools are much more likely to be accepted than those who don't, even if they scored below that school's typical test score average. And while you don't have to submit a test score at a test optional school, not submitting one puts more pressure on the other elements of your application, and it makes you seem like more of an unknown to admissions officers. This in turn will make admissions officers a little less sure about whether or not you deserve an acceptance letter. To recap, at test optional schools, you don't have to submit a test score, but submitting a good or even average score will dramatically improve your chances. Okay, but what about a test blind school? Well, at these schools, admissions officers are not even allowed to consider SAT or ACT scores. And even if you do submit your test scores on the Common App or through another application portal, readers at a test blind school won't be allowed to look at them. With all of this in mind, let's talk about the UC decision to go test blind. Between 2 different lawsuits and 5 policy changes in the last 14 months alone, it's been a little tricky to keep track of what exactly has been going on with California's renowned public colleges. Really, California. What's been going on? We'll spare you most of the history, but let's just do a very basic overview of what happened and why. First off, why did the UCs even go test blind in the first place? Well, critics of standardized testing have long contended that the SAT and the ACT are biased against many types of students. One example is that students from higher income families can afford expensive test prep materials, tutors, and prep courses. And another is that parents who went to college in the US can sometimes provide more support and resources as their children prepare for the test, creating a disadvantage for future first-generation college students. Students within the more privileged categories are disproportionately white, which is part of the reason why critics also point out the racial disparities caused by standardized testing. And finally, the structure and length of the test itself do not cater well to students with disabilities. Given the traditional importance of standardized test scores in college admissions, it's pretty easy to see how inequitable tests would lead to discrepancies in representation on college campuses. Public universities in California have been no exception. Latinx students are underrepresented at 7 of the 9 UC undergraduate campuses. Latinx students make up over 51% of California's high school graduates each year, but in 2019, only about 21% of incoming students at UCSD identified as Latinx, and at UC Berkeley, that number was 15%. Black students, meanwhile, are underrepresented at all 9 UC undergraduate campuses. While they represent about 6% of California's high school graduates, in 2019, they only made up about 2% of the UC's undergraduate student body. It was this lack of equity, together with a 2019 lawsuit, that drove the UC Board of Regents to begin reconsidering testing requirements in May of 2020. Of course, there was also that 2020 lawsuit that forced the UCs to go test blind last year. That was so that disabled students wouldn't be at an even more severe disadvantage than usual during the pandemic when fewer testing centers were open. In any case, the UCs will now remain test blind until at least 2025 while they attempt to create and implement a new, more equitable standardized test totally separate from the SAT and the ACT. And if they aren't able to successfully design that new test, well, then they'll just stay test blind. With hope, removing the SAT and ACT from the process will help level the playing field and enable these schools to build more diverse and representative classes. Now that we've covered the history and gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the implications for you. Many of you are probably wondering if you should still take the exam. Well, if you're absolutely set on attending a public school in California, then you definitely don't need to take the SAT or the ACT. These schools will not look at your scores, even if you do have them. In fact, we estimate that the SAT may lose as many as 85,000 test takers as a result of the new policy, while the ACT may lose 35,000. That said, it can still be valuable to take these exams if you have any interest in attending a private school or a public school outside of California. So how does this affect the number of total applications? Well, in the past, the UC's high average SAT and ACT numbers stopped many students from even bothering to apply. But when the schools went test blind last year, tens of thousands more students applied than usual. Total undergraduate applications increased by about 28% at both UCLA and UC Berkeley, while UC applications overall rose 13%. At CollegeVine, we expect last year's numbers to be the new normal. Record or near record numbers of students will likely continue to apply to the UCs each year, meaning that these schools will be as selective as ever. Additionally, we expect that extracurricular resumes and essays will be far more important than before in the UC application process. Many applicants to the UCs have solid GPAs, and in the past, admissions officers could weed out the students who had high GPAs but low test scores. Now, admissions officers will have to rely more on the non-academic elements of people's applications to make their decisions. Finally, acceptances will become somewhat more random between different UC schools. That might sound a little confusing, so let's break it down. Before the UCs went test blind, in-state students who graduated in the top 9% of their class were generally guaranteed admission to at least one of the UC schools, if space allowed. However, SAT and ACT scores still played a major role in determining whether they ended up at a very selective program like UC Berkeley or a less selective one like UC Merced. Now these admissions decisions will be somewhat more random. A student who previously would have gotten into UCSD but not into UC Berkeley because of their test score, well, now they might get into UC Berkeley. Conversely, a student who would have been accepted both at UC Berkeley and UCSD, they might only get into UCSD. In-state students who are set on attending only the most prestigious colleges, well, they'll likely apply to more private and out-of-state schools. Thus, because UCLA and UC Berkeley will be the first choice of a larger percentage of accepted students, we expect them to see much higher yield, a yield being the percentage of accepted students who ultimately enroll. The other lower-ranked UC schools are likely to see lower yields because many students who are accepted to those programs may opt to attend non-UC schools instead. And there you have it. In an effort to build more representative student bodies and pursue equity in college admissions, the UC schools will no longer be looking at SAT or ACT scores. We expect that this will result in increased applications to the UCs overall, higher yield rates at UC Berkeley and UCLA, lower yield rates at other UCs, and more emphasis being placed on students' extracurricular resumes and essays. We still recommend that you take the SAT or ACT if you have any interest at all in applying to public schools outside of California or to private schools anywhere. However, if you're set on only attending a public school in California, then it's totally fine to skip out on this once critical piece of the college admissions process. This is a complex topic, and we know you may still have questions about how this change will affect you. To help you out, we've linked some relevant posts from our extensive blog below, as well as a recent live stream we did on this topic. You can also visit collegevine.com for all of your other admissions related needs, such as our custom chancing engine, our scholarship opportunities, and so much more. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can keep up to date with all of our upcoming content. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.